Hello, may I present to you, in addition to my previous video showing the school failures in Denver, and now in association with a map which is intended to show segregation into the city. And this is from the New York Times, and we can see this caption up here. New government rules will require all cities and towns receiving federal housing funds to assess patterns of segregation. Because the New York Times and the federal government has noticed that their multicultural experiment is not quite working out the way that they've anticipated. And people are preferring to live on their own, with their own. And this is a problem for them because they are ideologues and they have a utopian vision of the world. And it's all going to fail, of course. And this is going to be a insight as to how it's failing for people to understand what to be looking for, because this is going to get much worse before it gets better. It's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. This is a disaster. So anyways, we're looking at Denver right here, and a point to notice here is this line with no population on it. This is I-25, and up here I believe is I-70, so you can get some idea of this map. Okay, and we see that the yellow dots here, these are Hispanic, and the the green are white, and then the blue are the blacks here, and then you have some red mixed in there and others and such. But primarily you see that, we have a large Hispanic ghetto, it appears, parked out here on the side of on the west side of I-25, which is, that's a crappy neighborhood. I'm sure it's gotten far worse from the last time I was living in Denver in 2003. I'm not sure I even knew this was out here. I just knew that this was all crap. And sure enough, it's filled up. So anyways, we're now going to look at this website which tracks school scores, so you as a parent can be informed as to where to move, I suppose, and what schools to put your kids in. And before I noticed here that this band of schools failing is primarily Hispanic and some mix. And sure enough, these dots and these schools map with that segregation map, And we could have inferred that from the information just given on this website, because it does give out demographic charts, right, for these schools. And I just looked at a few of them, and it's enough to get the picture, right? And this is it's a trend across the whole country, and it's indeed a trend across the world. We would not expect to see good schools in Latin America. This is one of the reasons they're leaving Latin America, is to escape their poor schools. So anyways, we can see we have I-25, and then here we go, west of I-25, something's going wrong. A bunch of failing schools doing terribly, right? I mean, to be fair, it looks like Denver is this whole city is just a mess with their schools. Look, there's a few of them in here, but it looks like for the most part, this is just a broken multicultural mess. I mean, I know the city's up and coming, and it's getting a lot of talent and people moving there, but this is what the third world looks like. This is failed multiculturalism. It's a disaster, and it's awful. The whole thing's awful, and I don't think people quite realize this. If you were to read the narrative from the New York Times, this is, or even in fact the narrative presented in this website, which if you were to look at some of these schools, they will try to sell you on the idea of quote-unquote diversity and how this is a benefit for your kid. And as we can see looking into these schools, these are not diverse. These schools are highly segregated, and they're of one race. And you would be a fool to live in here if you had a choice, right? This wasn't like this 30 years ago. It wasn't like this 20 years ago. So people have already learned that the diversity is terrible, and they want out, right? Which again, we could have known. The Latin Americans themselves, they told us by moving here that we don't want to live in Latin America. There's no jobs. The schools are terrible, right? No prospects for us. So we knew ahead of time that these people are the makings of failure, right? Yet they came here in these numbers. They're allowed to immigrate here, where they're allowed to put their kids into the schools, and this is the result. And now we've taken on the burden of Latin America, and these kids are going to be resentful. They're going to fail in life. We have enough information on this, and it's a disaster. It was predictable, right? Not worth the price of cheap yard work and drywalling, right? It was very short-sighted. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at if you're in Denver or in America. This is what's happening. Okay, thanks for listening.